Hello there, I'm Nick, and this is the Game Apologist, where we look for the good in bad games. And once again, I'm not actually talking about a bad game, just a good game that has a lot of controversy surrounding it. And that controversy is only really applying to hardcore fans, in a community I'm not really a part of. But hey, I still enjoy me some Final Fantasy, and the community I am a part of just kinda treats me like their ex they still haven't gotten over, so let's take a breather from Sonic for a minute. And I don't know if you'd really even call me a Final Fantasy fan, as much as I am a fair-weather Final Fantasy fan. Yeah, I love the games to death, and I was all about them back when everybody else my age was. And honestly, I didn't even jump into the games until a certain electric mouse pushed me into the genre on training wheels. But hey, I'm a gamer, I still know the basics. 3 is actually 6, and the true best of the series, before the series jumped into 3D and gave the spiky boy green eyes, which... I just can't escape it. But yeah, I was caught up in the hype. I've cherished what I finish, and I've read up on characters elsewhere or come across them in Kingdom Hearts or Dissidia or whatever else. You can't escape Final Fantasy if you're a gamer. But that's what I mean when I say I'm a fair-weather fan. The ones I did beat or nearly beat it did resonate with me emotionally on a level few games have ever managed to do. The sheer level of world and character building is intricately designed from top to bottom, and it kept me invested from start to finish, a handful of times. But regardless, Final Fantasy VII certainly did that for me. Problem is, I just don't remember most of it. I mean, I distinctly remember environments, music, emotions, and certain moments that nobody can shut up about, but it's been at least 20 years since I've actually played through the game. There's a lot to remember. As much as this game meant to me back in the day, or 9 or 10, I've only ever run through them one time because these are huge games and, well, turn-based RPGs just aren't usually my jam. I gotta be in a very specific mood for those. But as fuzzy as my memory can be, the impact and hype of the game has certainly left its impression. During the mid to late 90s, when everybody was jumping into 3D, you had to go big if you wanted to survive this brave new dimension. Nintendo delayed the N64 over and over again, but I mean, when they did, Mario kinda just set the standard forevermore. Sonic waited even longer until the technology could keep up with them, still making sure to make some 3D cameos here and there on the Saturn. But these are platformers. What about Final Fantasy? Well, in that case, they basically kept the gameplay the same as it ever was. I mean, sure, systems are different from older games, but there's not really anything here in the core gameplay that wouldn't work on older hardware. Yeah, all these characters look dated these days, everything's kind of blocky and not super appealing to a mainstream audience, but that's not what you were seeing in the commercials. What you instead saw were these insane, big, flashy CG cutscenes. That's what Square focused on in the marketing, and it was quite brilliant. That's what got people into the door, and for the first time they realized that RPGs could give you some really engaging stories and narrative and clever yet addicting turn-based combat. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There was so much here. You could really take your time in this world and explore it and get to know these characters and really feel like you are part of this universe. And they did that with each and every game. It was nuts, man. And as the years went on, Square never really let up on the graphics, and they went even harder on the bombastic effects and over-the-top fight scenes. But again, only really relegated that to cutscenes. The core gameplay still left us politely taking turns setting each other on fire or shoving giant slabs of metal in each other's faces. And that's not a bad thing for everybody. I can only speak for myself here, and this is part of the reason why I ramble on so much about where I stand with the franchise. I can enjoy a solid turn-based experience, but it's not my go-to experience. And when I look at these character designs and when I was watching these fun cutscenes, that's what I wanted to play. I wanted to experience these wacky anime sword fights for myself. Now that the tech can keep up with the flashy action, the main series itself leaned more and more into the action genre. Square has still provided some traditional RPGs every now and then, but Final Fantasy was very obviously trying to go for a mainstream approach, all leading to a point where the Final Fantasy VII Remake plays nothing like the original game. But hey, Square has been doing this for years now. How'd they do with the remake? Overall, in my opinion, it's a lot of fun. I was worried about a lot of things going into this game. Specifically about the combat, I was worried it's going to be a little bit too simplistic yet too complicated at the same time, like mindless spamming of an action button with jarring pauses while you sift through menus looking for the right item or spell, and an awkward mix of action that has to adhere to obnoxious old-school JRPG nonsense. And in the most cynical sense, it kind of is that, but I liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, time to slow down when you're shuffling through menus, but I was enjoying it. I felt like the two genres genres merged quite nicely, and it felt like there was far more nuance with the fighting than I'd even experienced with my first run-through. With a few fights forcing you to learn how to swap between battle stances and counterattacks. Seriously, this fight with Reno here made me feel like I was in an episode of a shonen anime. I could barely land a hit on this guy, and he was really giving me a run for my money. But he doesn't hit that hard, or that frequently, giving you enough time to heal and figure out a strategy. Up to this point in the game, I'd not really utilized the counter. I don't even think I knew it was here, but you better believe after this fight, I certainly did use this. So yes, there is a bit more going on here than just a mindless hack and slash game. And the swords are only one playstyle. You also get a punch, shoot, and magic stick with the other characters. They're all varied and they're all a lot of fun. They also use materia, these little magic orbs here, to allow you to use, magic, or stat boosts, or a combination to charge up a spell or weapon, and you equip these materia to your weapons and accessories, giving you plenty of ways to customize your characters as you see fit. You don't get a lot of weapons in the game, but they do keep the stats balanced between them, so you never have to throw one out and replace it like you do with old school RPGs. The iconic Buster Sword always remains a viable option through the game. Still, there are benefits for breaking out of your comfort zones with these weapons. Each one has a unique attack or ability that can only be used if it's equipped, and if you use that technique enough, it will be mastered and part of your arsenal forevermore, giving you plenty of time to accommodate your character's playstyles to new stats. This way everyone gets a chance to be a healer, magic user, a hard-hitting bruiser, and everything in between. Well, everyone but Aerith anyway. She dips in and out of the story so much they kind of remain solely on the ranged attacks for her. Barrett usually does too, but he does have a couple of weapons that make him melee, but I'll be surprised if anybody keeps him in this clunky state when Tifa and Cloud just react so much faster to your button prompts, and the wind up and cooldown is just not even comparable between the two characters. And the amount of flying characters you have to deal with, it's just better to keep Barrett a shooter for the most part. You have to juggle all of this while keeping an eye on how to best take down your foes, as they all have specific weaknesses that will fill their stagger meter. You fill this up and you daze these dudes and you multiply your damage output. I would speak on all of this more, but a lot of the time I just dabble around until I got impatient and powered through. Like I said, I felt like I've only scratched the surface on the amount of combinations with materia and combat that could be learned. A major part of RPGs, and a very satisfying one, is leveling up and bumping up stats. And here I think they did a fine job mixing up the need to buff up your characters, yet require you to understand the versatile combat. Again, I don't know if this is a perfect combination, but I think your average Joe is gonna have a lot of fun with this game. It's not perfect, and I'm sure you've heard these complaints elsewhere. Boss fights, for instance, are a little long in the tooth, but I somehow feel like that makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd be happy shaving off a few minutes here and there, but they feel grand, they feel epic. Just, they also kind of feel like raid bosses in an MMORPG a little bit. Some of the odd jobs start off in a town, then you have to run off somewhere else in the map and kill this many of this one thing or grab this other thing or something along those lines. Those also get a lot of complaints, but for the most part, I was pretty okay with them. I feel like they break up the story and combat well enough, and there's also other mini games or motorcycle missions, and all these are very straightforward. You don't need any detailed breakdown of this stuff, so let's not linger on this point. The story and characters, I was a little worried about as well. Again, I have not played the original for years, but I have played other Square Enix games localized for English-speaking audiences, and
I knew when I met you. You and Kairi smell the same.
There are just some weird-ass anime quirks in some of these games, and I can't stand them. Everyone is gasping or making stupid noises for no reason, just to fill up dead air, I guess. Tifa, and actually just about every girl in this game, is bopping about like that okay boomer girl, and just some very peculiar dialogue choices.
Welcome home, honey. Took your sweet time. Psych.
Who says psych? We stopped saying psych before the original game came out. And then there's this Mr. T sound-alike.
You gonna stand there and pretend you can't hear the planet crying out in pain? I know you can!
You really hear that?
Damn straight I do!
Get help.
Oh my God. After listening to this for 30 hours?
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, I was an irritable dude when I first started this up. I really didn't like all this anime-ass nonsense happening around me. I was cranky with everybody at first. But you know what? It was worth all of it just to get to this. I kind of feel like these characters grew on me as time passed on, kind of like Cloud himself. And by the time I was done with this game, I was ride or die for these guys. I love these characters. The weeb nonsense is actually toned down from other Square games. Or maybe it's just more fitting here. Maybe this stuff just sounds a little more wooden when it's coming out of Woody's mouth.
My guess is no one's ever loved you before.
I started off this game annoyed with a lot of little things, and I turned around on just about all of it. And you know what? I'm not going to pretend like I didn't think it was ridiculous that we were only getting a part of the original game when Square announced that they were remaking Final Fantasy VII. I mean, we were all freaking out. This has been rumored for years, and they were finally doing it. They're finally remaking Final Fantasy VII in multiple parts. Well, there doesn't seem to be an emphasis on that anywhere on the packaging. Seems a little disingenuous. Feel like a lot of us were saying that a lot of people are probably gonna be pissed off when they finally pick up the game. Oh, shocker, that's exactly what happened. I was not happy about the news that multiple games were gonna be made just to cover this one game. Why do we have to Hobbit everything these days? We're gonna Peter Jackson this thing and George Lucas it at the same time? Again, getting ahead of myself. Just look, I get it. In the original game, you zip through some of these spots in 5 seconds, and it takes literally 10 times as long in the remake. But you know what? I'm about it. I know there's a lot of filler here, and it can get jarring. And I don't think you need to have played the original to realize that while you're on your way to stop a giant plate from crushing an entire town, it might not be the most ideal time to detour and solve a Scooby-Doo mystery. But if I'm honest with myself, while some of the stuff isn't great, for the most part, I loved this. And the downtime to get to know this world and these characters was a lot of fun. Obnoxious quirks and all. And who didn't love Wall Market? I barely remember Cloud's cross-dressing in the original game. And here I thought they would just sidestep this plot to maintain the badass moody sword boy attitude, but no man, they go all in. And just look at this thirsty girl. She has found her fetish. No judgments, honey. This whole sector is out and loud and horny as hell. It goes straight up bizarre adventure, and I am all about it. Yes, again, there is some weird weeb nonsense that annoys me, but you gotta be in for some of this nonsense, man. Going into this, I was trepidatious. The Square of today is very hit and miss. They still produce quality stuff, but the track record is spotty, and there were some big red flags for me going into the remake. I understand that the original game's visuals are dated as all get out, but the core mechanics, outside of some choppy minigames, have aged just fine. Why would you fix what's not broken? Second, as I've already broke down for you, we were not getting the full game, just the Midgar portion. Splitting games is something Square Enix has been doing for quite a bit, and frankly, I don't like it. I'm sure they would flesh it out into a full game on its own, but do we really need to focus on the extra cannon fodder members of Avalanche? How much of this was going to be needless tedium? I wasn't happy about getting a portion of the game they were remaking, and at the same time, I didn't want to fill up on bread before I got to the meal. Don't waste my time for the sake of wasting time. And my third major concern, and it sort of plays into all of this, was Tetsuya Nomura. Nomura is the director of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it should be noted that he has a lot of history with this specific game. He helped make some specific scenes, but more importantly, he is the character designer behind this game. And that's actually what he's done for the grand majority of his legacy at Square. His designs help shape the identity of not only Final Fantasy VII, but a massive part of Square's Final Fantasy and fantasy-adjacent games. And yes, he does dabble in a lot of roles, producer and director, both of Advent Children and like all of Kingdom Hearts. In Square's eyes, he's done good for them. And in terms of Kingdom Hearts, I loved the first game when it came out, loved the second game when it dropped, but the more I played of these games, the less I enjoyed them. And as gaming narrative evolved through the years, it was hard to enjoy this weird, awkward, stilted dialogue from all of these games. And then they just took forever to finally wrap this stuff up. And I know I'm being very dismissive here. That series does a lot of incredible things, and they are so insanely unique, but stretched through 15 years and spread to every kind of system on the planet, only to rush and wrap it up in a third act of the third game, and by the time I was done with the third game, I looked back at all this and wondered, was it worth it? I don't think so. Nomura is a talented guy, and his strength as an artist is undeniable, despite all the zippers and buckles he seems to be obsessed with. But his strength as a storyteller, that's not so consistent. I don't outright hate everything the guy does, but I certainly was not happy with the news that Nomura was running the show. And now that show would be split into multiple parts. Great! I can't wait to take this old complete package of a video game and spread it out for over a decade onto multiple platforms. That'll be super fun. Gosh, I hope I don't miss the mobile spin-offs. And it's not like that joke is far-fetched. Yeah, they did all that with Kingdom Hearts, but I mean, they did do it with Final Fantasy VII years ago. Instead of remaking the game, they instead made prologues, epilogues, spin-offs, and a whole damn movie, and then just teased a remake of the game on the PS3. And that just turned out to be a tech demo. There's enough history here with Square, and with 7 specifically, to leave fans more than a little concerned. Still, as convoluted as this history may be, there are very few examples of any of these games being out and out horrible. And look, at the end of the day, there's no way we weren't gonna play the remake. And like you already know, the final product is actually pretty damn good. I didn't expect another groundbreaking masterpiece, but this is actually about what I expected. And that includes some insane stuff that I had no way of expecting. And that all started here, when Cloud first meets Aerith. Again, I don't remember much from the original, but I do remember this being a sweet moment. But here in the remake, oh shit, they found me. I can't go back to Azkaban. I had to rack my brain here because I certainly did not remember Dementors in the original game. And just when I was about to forget about them, they just keep showing up all over the damn place. And boy, oh boy, by the time this game wrapped up, I gotta commend the materia orbs on Nomura because this was a bold move. So here we go into full spoilers, my baby birds. Buckle in. This is why I wanted to make this specific episode. Everything up to this point is known. We know the rocky history of Final Fantasy. We know the remake turned out fine. But now it's time to get into a more nuanced discussion, because as it turns out, these not heartless are the physical representation of destiny, making sure the story plays out exactly as it intended. And they are so important that the last chapter of the game completely derails and goes full wackadoo, and you literally kill Destiny. Nomura likes to play with big philosophical ideas and turn them into deformed monsters for you to hit. Subtlety is not his forte. Like, how are these guys supposed to function? How does their very existence not screw up Destiny? They just show up and put something in place and tell people not to worry about it? Look, the Final Fantasy games are known for doing zany things like having a lovable bunch of pretty kids get together, hang out, take down organized religion, and then kill God. But in terms of game pacing, there's a lot of plotting for a good chunk of the game, and then the last chapter feels like they go full Game of Thrones Season 8. Not even that. It's like watching the first season and then jumping straight into the last episode. They didn't exactly build to this point in the most organic of ways. Also just goes to show how stupid some of these characters are. Like, if these guys hadn't jumped in, they would be dead for the stupidest of reasons. So, what they're driving for here is, now that you have conquered Destiny, going forward, anything can happen. This is the big plot twist that everyone is up in arms about. Some feel like this whole thing is a slap to the face of old school fans, disrespecting the narrative of the original. How dare Nomura mess with this? And others feel like this is a bold, fresh take and are excited to see what's next. Me? Well, as usual, I'm of two minds about it, because Nomura does have a track record of starting things off strong, but taking too long to get to an unsatisfying finish line. I get the idea he was going for, but like, did it have to completely halt the narrative? Did it have to be this on the nose? Again, subtlety is not this dude's forte. I hope you can understand why people are a little on edge. The original is a landmark video game, and it holds a deep emotional importance to so many. Even if the original game is not your favorite, imagine any game you are desperate to have remade. You want to see these characters, this environment, these wonderful moments, boss fights, plot twists. You want to see all of this stuff play out on modern hardware. You want to see a legend preserved. And some dickhead just comes in, dumps Destiny ghosts all over the place, just to tell you at the end that everything's gonna be different. Yes, thank you, game, I get it. Thank you. And that's not even mentioning him. Even being away from the game for 20 years, there was no way I was forgetting Sephiroth. Mostly because Square Enix won't let me. People are pissed that he is showing up way too early. What made him so badass in the original was the build-up and reveal of this character, only showing hints of his power and bloodlust, making you a little concerned about running into him, maybe even hoping not running into him at all. All that mystery and allure is gone whenever Cloud trips balls in this game, and it happens plenty. And from my perspective, I get it. He's the big iconic bad guy. You knew Square was going to shove him down your throat eventually. And apparently this Sephi has already played the original game, because this one knows how things are going to play out. And now he is free to do whatever he wants now that he's no longer shackled to Destiny. Also, like, seriously, who's surprised by Sephiroth anymore? Again, everybody's played the original game, but like, if you're this invested into gaming, you know Sephiroth. His story has been out there for 20 years. He's an iconic character. The allure has been gone for decades now. I can't speak for everybody else. I can't say that you can't reinvigorate what made this character so cool. I'm just saying this nonsense never really bothered me. I fully expected this crap. I had a good time overall, but I somehow left this game feeling the same as when I entered it. Trepidatious. We have all seen fan bases come on strong to something, only to have later installments really rustle their feathers down the line. And I won't lie, I hate these stupid ghosts. Yeah, I get the point, and I think the message overall is kind of awesome, but I really hope we don't see them going forward. I don't want to see these stupid things again. Yeah, I get it. I'm a little nervous going forward. I have not seen Nomura pull off an expertly told story in any game he's made. But then again, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't get swept up in the final fight of Advent Children. And man, Kingdom Hearts had some really awesome moments. And despite the fluff, I generally enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay here. As obnoxious as I found Barrett at first, when I got up to the president's office, Oh god, no! Gun Daddy, don't leave me! I mean, I figured the Ghosts of Christmas Future would patch him up with a nice little Dementor kiss, but still, I was beginning to sweat. Are they alluding to him dying down the road? Is Aerith still on the chopping block? I'm kinda nervous about what comes next, but so are the characters. And that's kind of awesome. They could pull it off, or it could be a train wreck. But if you give me more of these characters and more of this gameplay, I'm probably gonna have a great time. I understand and sympathize with the people that are frustrated with this game, and I feel like their critique is very, very valuable. I don't have to agree with every point, but it makes for interesting conversation and can provide perspective that I would have overlooked. These frustrations are not coming from a place of ignorance. This is coming from a deep understanding of the source material. And if nothing else, the overall message from them is, we can do better. At the same time, don't feel ashamed for loving what you love. Trust me, coming from the Sonic community here, gamers could learn a little bit of compromise. It's not that difficult. I've seen people full-on boycott this game just because it takes place in Midgar, and they're just looking at this as numbers. It's only the first 6 hours of the game. So what? Didn't you want to explore Midgar a little bit more? Don't you think this world deserves a little more attention? Yeah, there's some needless odd jobs here and there, but they play fine. What about these vistas? What about that wonderful dancing minigame in Wall Market? Yeah, maybe we didn't need a backstory for the bodyguard. Maybe we didn't need a third love interest in Jessie. I understand and even agree with the complaints about the padding, anime noises, wacky ass ending. And yes, if you are a newcomer, there's going to be shit near the end of the game that will make no sense to you. I've heard this complaint so many times. But I believe in you. You can figure it out. I'm sorry you didn't play the original game, but I got a secret for you. That game still exists. And it's very readily available. You can play it, nobody's stopping you. There is something to be said for having a piece of media stand on its own. I get that. But this game is not meant to out and out replace the original Final Fantasy VII. You'll in fact get more out of this game if you've played the original. Growing up, there have been a lot of series that I never felt I could jump into. There is some older piece of media that just didn't resonate with me. But eventually, if they did come out with something that was palatable to me, I would jump in. And if I loved it, I would be excited to go backwards and see what else I could discover, what else I could connect with, compare and contrast to this newer thing and go from there. I've done that with movies and games, and hell, you have to practically do that with comics. And I would argue that having this history and legacy makes all this content way more satisfying. Sure, you don't get the same wow factor as kids of the day, but so what? Aren't you kinda curious to see how the original played out? Maybe you'll finally give Crisis Core or Dirge of Cerberus a shot, or crazy thought, try another one of these Final Fantasy games that gets so much praise. 7 isn't the only one out there. Jumping into a franchise is really not that hard. I'm not gonna listen to newcomers complaining that the ending didn't make sense to them. I don't care. I barely remember the original, and I hate to break it to you, every Final Fantasy game gets a little bit bonkers. They usually just take a little bit longer to get there. You fought a house, and you cross-dressed, and you killed Destiny. Whoop-de-doo. That's not even remotely close to the strangeness these games get up to. The game is not perfect, but damn, is it a lot of fun. Even if you sat through the spoilers, which I get it, I've done that too. Ultimately, the spoiler is, basically, nobody knows for sure what comes next. That's it. You still have amazing characters, fun action, genuinely hilarious moments, a soundtrack that just won't quit. Even if one of the tracks sounds like Aphex Twin, and if you've never heard of Aphex Twin, have fun. This is not the most detailed analysis, I know, but honestly, I'm hyped again. I'm jonesing to play the original. Hell, I might even replay 9, my favorite of the series. Or maybe it's finally time to jump into one of the more controversial games for the show. I don't know, you tell me. My point is, this game is worth checking out. And if you let Destiny Ghost get to you, the original game is still there. You're gonna be fine. They still capture a lot of the other moments and elements of the original game. If you're not touching this game because it's only playing out a portion of the original, again, I feel like you're really missing out here. These are silly reasons not to enjoy everything else this game provides. Midgar is so iconic. I thought they picked a perfect stopping point for this particular game. Stop looking at it from the amount of content from the original game and look at it from the story beats. Where does it most make sense to take a break, to let this section really flourish and do its own thing? The major story points they make in the first part of the original game get wrapped up pretty nicely. And the larger tale of chasing down Sephiroth, that's the drive and the interest for the bigger, wider world of Gaia. And if they treat it with the care they showed Midgar, I am super excited to see what's next. I love seeing all the crowds in Midgar. I love seeing all the reactions to all the craziness happening around them. I love taking in the detailed ruins. I love spending more time with characters that I completely forgot existed, but I guarantee I'm never gonna forget from here on out. It honestly feels like a lot of this work would have gone to waste if they just kept that snappy pace of the original. I liked having more to do here. Is it superior to the original game? No, but it's not trying to be. At the end of the day, this game's gonna be successful. It generally has a positive buzz around it, and I just kinda wanted to share my thoughts on it. The whole point of Game Apologist is giving something a second chance, to look at it from a different perspective. And speaking personally, I had a complete shift in opinion, and I think that's fascinating. When it was announced, when they told us what they were gonna do with it, I wasn't happy. I came into this guarded, but I kept an open mind, and I wanted to enjoy what I was playing, and I'm glad I did. It's rare for me to agree with Square and some of their business practices, but like Jim Sterling recently said, Square sticks to their guns, man. They made a bold choice, and I want to see this through. And yeah, maybe they could have done something along the lines of Trials of Mana, where they do a remake that's nowhere near as big and large and doesn't require multiple parts to complete, but this is Final Fantasy, man. Like, you need the spectacle. If you're gonna go this big and this hard with any series, this is the one I want them to go this hard for. And for those of you on the fence, I recommend you give this a shot as well. And hey, if you've played it already, let me know what you think. Do you agree with the criticism? Do you love this game? These are all valuable opinions, and I can't wait to get into discussions with you guys about it. If you like the show, be sure to check out all the other stuff on here. I promise there is a whole bunch of stuff. If you like Sonic, got plenty of that. And if you want to see my opinions on other games, or I got this funny one about trucks on Route 66. The game's interesting, guys, I promise you. And hey, you know, the rest of this stuff, you can support me on Patreon, you can follow me on Twitter, you can like and subscribe, whatever you want to do. I didn't script this last section here, I just kind of went rambling like a lunatic for 20 minutes. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna go. Toot toot, light warriors.